Yes. Why would you choose construction?
Just because construction uses medieval elements, or for me that's what I think. So it'd be good to see it. Or things in their raw states. So.
So this is a work by a Spanish artist who exhibited in the Venice Biennale. The Venice Biennale, it's every 2 years in the Italian city of Venice. Many countries are invited to present a work of art that they think is the best the country has produced. So in 2013, 2 years ago, the Spanish exhibition was that. And what has been done is the artist who was invited decided to calculate how many materials have been put into building the structure where the exhibition was supposed to have. So this is a gallery space, like the space where we sit now. And the artist said, okay, my exhibition would be to research what those walls and those floors and those ceilings are made of. So she did that research, she calculated what kind of stones are used in the walls and what kind of sand is used in the walls and the amount of those materials that are required to erect those spaces. And she just commissioned those materials to arrive to the space and just piled them there. So what you see is a space that inside of it has piles of the ingredients that it was made of. And that's a very creative way to speak about construction, when we even forget how those things, where they come from, and to make a connection between those materials that are in nature and how we end up using them.
Why is this considered public art? I mean, if it's in a gallery space.
Well, that's a good question, because I would argue that public art is not necessarily art that happens in what we think public space is, which is usually the street. I can argue that street is not really a public space because not every public feels comfortable to be there and not always. So I would argue that public art can be art that speaks to public questions, art that thinks about how the public will perceive it. Not necessarily art that is held in a public space. That would many times be the case, but that's not necessarily, because we can put a sculpture inside the central bus station, but I can come to you and tell you I don't think it's public art, because actually there is no engagement with public issues in the way the public artwork is. So that's again representing a different view on public art, which is mine, and you don't have to agree. But I think it's not about the space so much as it is about the issue and the way you are communicating yourself to your audience.
I'm wondering, so you call this art, but in terms of sort of evoking something from within, which most public art would do, I think this is more to sort of amaze people. I mean, it's impressive that a building like that would be built out of so many different materials. But at the same time, it's not so much about your emotional feeling. Not that art always has to be about that. It doesn't really have I don't feel connected to it. I'm not sure. But what exactly?
Well, I guess it's first of all, there is a difference between seeing something in a picture and being there. And as I have been there, and I can tell you that when you step into a space, especially when you confront it with your expectation of seeing pictures on the walls, and suddenly you see piles, that very well provokes something inside of you. So you have this amazement, this surprise, and then you start questioning yourself. May I say it's not art? So all those conversations you are having, and there is something quite impressive to see a pile of things around you. So I would say that when you are there, you do feel, but again, it's not necessarily something that works for everyone. So your question is interesting, and I think it's an open question. That would just be my answer.
So then, by saying like that, then by definition, does that mean that any art that is set in like a gallery kind of zone, that does provoke something to do with like the public and all of that, like that artwork, for example, it's connected. It's like talking about social media and stuff. So then, would that be public art?
Well, I think that in general, I don't think there are answers to those questions.
So
I really think that's you can answer that, and I can, it depends on the thing itself, and I can look at something and say what is my opinion, but I would suggest just opening things up, and whatever you feel your answer is, that's your answer. Some things that I will show you here, they will speak to you more, some will not. And I don't think there is one way to go. I think the beauty about art is that it allows that openness, and that's one of the only things in our society that doesn't need that qualification. Anyone can decide they can be an artist tomorrow, and they don't necessarily need somebody to confirm that. Maybe if they want to call themselves fine artists, then they need the gallery, but then can come somebody else and say, no, those fine artists, they're actually just commercial production, they are not. So there are many ways to look around it, and what I would like to do is to inspire you to respect those different ways of doing and be confident enough to choose your way of understanding what things is, and to show you that there are people who don't necessarily go in the traditional ways of understanding things.
Oh, sorry, I was about to say, I would look at a gallery as a public space, as in it's a privately owned public space, because who populates the gallery but us, the public? The museum, in a way, well, exactly, is the same. It's a state-owned, state-run public space. So, yes.
So there isn't really a line. I mean, like, then you can ask the question, like, what is non-public art, like private art? Is that just the stuff that, like, say I paint a picture and I leave it at home? Like, what is that then?
I think that's...
So
I think you've started a lecture. You really just started. Because even private collections now are being open to the public. I think the very nature of art is in us, the public, consuming it in its various media. And so, yeah, I think that's what this age is successfully answering. And these questions trigger, I think, the development of those solutions.
I think you have to ask each individual artist what their intention was when they created that piece, because they know if it's the piece that they created on commission for someone to hang in their home, then you could maybe call that private, that has your say, something you get open to the public. But then if someone creates it for an art gallery or an actual installation, then you could call it private.
And sometimes it can have few meanings. It can be a commission, but actually the artists, they find a wise way to go around it, and to also do it in a more classically public way. Like Harun Gansalin is a fine artist. He's signed with the most commercial gallery in South Africa, and they take him to exhibitions. And I can tell you that more galleries in Milan and Europe have seen this video that we started with than people who know what District 6 is. So he plays both ways, and sometimes you don't have to choose. Sometimes you can actually be wise about it and play around it. Would anyone like to say anything else, or should we continue and choose another folder? Okay. Who was that? Why did you choose politics?
Because I think that politics is a subject that not everyone can properly relate to. And it's also one that's really important to illustrate to the public. So I mean, in terms of public art, it would be quite important.
Well, I'm happy that
according to
I'm happy that you're talking about what I would call the exclusivity of politics. Politics almost became something that is external to us, and that, no, I don't want to talk about politics, or no, I don't want to engage with politics. When actually what politics is, and I happen to study that in my past, the most popular definition of politics is who gets what and how. It's not ANC, it's not BA, it's not the parties, parliament, not necessarily. Politics is you and how you negotiate your space with your parents, or how you and your friends make decisions. Politics is many things. So the fact that the decision making of our society came to be something external as politics, and politics is voting and elections, that's something that actually disconnects the everyday life from that scene. And as a channel of connecting those things back, I didn't present myself, but I was born in the Ukraine, and then I lived in Israel. So some of the examples, they are from places that I know of. So that one was held in Israel. And what a group of poets and artists did, they went every parliament has like minutes, and they have archives when all the parliament meetings and all the way laws are made and acts are written and how the decisions are made, it's actually all open to the public. It's online, and public can even come to those meetings and to read how decisions were made and to ask questions about that. But that is many times not something that people know, and even if you do know, you will not actually waste your time to go and to read those things because you think they are boring, and you think they are foreign to you, and you think it's not your thing. So what these people did, they took minutes of an important parliamentary meeting that was held, and they turned it into a play. They took the minutes as they are, the text to every person what they say, which is usually very considered boring, and they just read it. They put people like me and you, not necessarily artists, and they went into public spaces like universities and like theaters, and they just staged a play which is 100% based on a real conversation that was held in the Israeli parliament. And that way they wanted to present it to the public and to make people engage with those topics in an interesting manner. So I will show you a short clip. It's obviously in Hebrew, so... This is high school level. They found a lot of gas on the shores of Israel. It was supposed to translate itself to a lot of money, like the mining industry in South Africa. And people who are the public who owns those resources actually have no idea how they are taxed. So this play was about that, and they just went into different spaces and had that play. It was so playful and fun. You could actually listen to those conversations, and maybe that would trigger you to go and read more to yourself. Yes, you wanted to ask a question?
Was the government or wherever having a meeting where they insulted? Like these people were kind of doing something funny about it?
I actually didn't look into that question, but my answer to you would be, who cares? Who are they, and why do you even need to consider what they think? They are doing something on your behalf. When they are speaking, they are saying that they are doing something for you as the public. So I don't think you should even be bothered with that. I can tell you that I attended one of those plays, and it was so much fun. It was just a nice place to be in, and when artists can make creative and fun conversations about topics that are considered heavy or too serious, that I think is a very successful thing to do.